this is Patria from offbeatfamily.com. Welcome to another Metaphor Monday. Today we are here on my balcony where I have a little garden growing, and I wanted to share some things with you. I was looking in my garden and noticing that amongst the seeds that I had planted, there were a few volunteers. And the volunteers being weeds. And then most people just want to pull weeds out, especially in a garden, especially in a vegetable garden. The first thing that they do is just pull it out because it's going to crowd out the other vegetables or plants if you're just growing a regular garden. And I haven't, so I'm just going to show you and then I'll explain why. So here we have my balcony garden. You can see there is some arugula. And alongside the arugula we have the famous dandelion. Everyone knows it's a weed. Some of you may know that it's actually not that bad. Then over here we have something called lamb's quarters. And over here, next to the lettuce, whoops, see if I can get a picture of that. That's wood sorrel. It's got the little heart leaves. How could you not love this weed? It actually tastes really good. It's lemony. I'm eating it now. If my son were here, he'd eat it. Anyway, I've just sort of let them come up this year, as I did last year, because these are actually, although they're weeds, they're what we call wild edibles. So they volunteered themselves to be in my garden, and I have wholeheartedly accepted them. So, what has that got to do with parenting? Just let me switch the camera around and I'll tell you. Weeds in general, I mean, they're so hardy, so strong. That's what makes them annoying to most people. But they can revitalize soil. They can take over where most cultured things or regular plants can't grow. So they have amazing stamina, and they're not just annoying, they actually serve a purpose in the environment, and so they can take over wasteland and bring it back to life, so to speak. So kids are very much like wild weeds in some ways. They just are very instinctive many times. They'll do whatever sort of comes to mind, and tend to explore and be curious and experiment in unconventional ways. And sometimes these ways of being can be annoying and can be something that we want to weed out and control. And maybe we want them to be more cultured. But there's many benefits to the wild side of children. When kids are wild, when they're running around, screaming, yelling, jumping up and down, jumping on the couch, doing all sorts of wild and wacky things, sometimes we just want to rein them in and have them be much more neat and tidy. But think there's a reason that the children behave in these ways, and that is that they're exploring their environment and exploring themselves, expressing themselves. And if we weed out those parts of them, then essentially we're weeding out some really important parts of them. Parts that can nourish their mind and their soul. Children learn in doing ways, and they learn from experimenting, and sometimes I think they learn better doing the wild things that they do than maybe the more contained, controlled ways that we try to teach them, say, in the school. So while most people would pull the weeds out, I welcome them. I think there's beauty in their strength, in their nutrition is far more superior than any cultivated vegetable or plant. And they're free. You don't have to work to get them, they just sort of come. How often do we have that opportunity in life? Well, I think we have it more often than we think. But we've become so accustomed to things being a certain way. Let's say, not necessarily calm, but neat and tidy, in our control, cultured, really, that sometimes we have disdain for the wild things. It just reminds me of that book, Where the Wild Things Are, and little Max, and how he ran around with a wolf costume on and just acted wild. He was just acting out a need to be wild and in control. And I think that's instinctual for children to have that sense of being wild, being free. And the control part for Max, well, I think it's being in control of being out of control, of dancing with that. And how else can kids do that if they're not allowed to be wild, if they're not allowed to show their wild side? How can they know how to be tame, so to speak, if they're not allowed to experience their wild side? And it's just them expressing themselves, expressing that side of them that's free and untamed. And they need to do that. They need that balance. If you think of mint, a lot of people know mint, and a lot of gardeners consider mint sort of a weed, because if you plant it next to other plants, it will take over. So most gardeners know that you plant things like mint or any of the mint families, like lemon balm, spearmint, you plant them in a pot. And that's so that they don't take over. So you allow them to be, but you might just contain them a little so that it doesn't get out of control. And in the same way with kids, while I'm saying, allow them to be wild, allow them to show that wild side, obviously they need containment too. They need to have just the right amount of opportunity to experiment, to express their wild side, yet enough containment that it doesn't get so out of control that it's overwhelming or it gets them into trouble. But it's a delicate balance. When you can allow children to experience or to express their wild side and accept that from them as children, when they most sort of need to be experiencing the world in any way that they need to, rather than the ways that maybe we think they should experience it. The ways that we say, okay, no, you have to do it this way, or learn it this way. It's important because I think a lot of that experimenting, that sort of rebelliousness that maybe comes out in adolescence can be avoided. Not that you won't have any rebellion, I think that's normal for adolescents, but by that time they've already had the opportunity to experience their wild side, so to speak, and so they know how to sort of get in and out of their wild side. So thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again next week on Metaphor Monday. Bye for now.